Hello there. Now, we always think of Starfleet as being the best and the brightest, the greatest shining stars that humanity has to offer, all rolled into one magnificent, beautiful, great beast that is Starfleet, the United Federation of Planets. Not just humanity, but all the other member races. Those who want to explore space, seek out new civilizations, be the first to make contact with new races, all that good stuff. But then, we encounter individuals such as Edward Larkin, a science officer aboard the USS Cabot, a vessel in Starfleet service in the 2250s. And today we're going to learn why this man is a shining example of humanity. Before we get started, like, share, subscribe, comment down below, as this channel, much to my surprise, is actually doing relatively well right now. It would be very much appreciated if you could share this video, but a like is equally helpful. Everything is helping the channel. As I said, to my surprise, it's doing pretty well right now, and I want to keep with the upward momentum. So with that said, let's get talking about the USS Cabot. The USS Cabot was a McGee-class starship in service with the United Federation of Planets Starfleet in the 2250s. Its exact date of commissioning isn't known, but we do know when it was destroyed and why. The ship, under the recommendations of Captain Christopher Pike of the USS Enterprise, would receive a new commanding officer in the form of Captain Lynn Lucero. And for her first assignment, Starfleet would send her to the planet of Pragan 63. This planet was on the border of the Klingon Empire, but was happening to suffer from a famine at the moment. Basically, she was sent to figure it out. The McGee-class starship was perfectly suited to this role. It was a planetary survey type ship. It was basically the backbone, bread and butter of Starfleet. This class of ship is the kind of vessel you send in for secondary assignment missions. After the big, impressive, everybody knows them Constitution class starships, these are the kind of auxiliary fleet, secondary vessels that come in and do the long-term assignments. Her first mission was to basically try to figure out a way to resolve the planetary famine that was taking place. And that's where scientist Edward Larkin enters the fray. In a meeting of her senior staff, they were trying to brainstorm a solution to the problem. He suggested genetically engineering a species he'd encountered known as a Tribble. A Tribble is a small furry creature, not unlike a rabbit, breeds a bit like one, but in its original genetic form, natural state, the Tribbles were not that reproductively active, but they were useful and there was some potential in them. He believed he could bioengineer them to become more reproductively fertile. And boy, was he going to be right. This idea was thrown out as she felt genetic manipulation of an entire species to be used as a food source was a little unethical. He disagreed, and by all means, all of you agree or disagree in the comments below. I can actually see both sides of the argument. But nonetheless, his idea was thrown out, maybe put on the back burner as an absolute emergency idea, but basically introducing an invasive species like this with a high reproductive rate, despite its relatively low nutritional value, would be detrimental to the planet's ecosystem, as we can see with a continent like Australia when rabbits were introduced. They've not exactly been good for Australia. No natural predators, or not enough of them, and it's allowed them to rampantly breed out of control, and Tribbles are worse. He probably should have just given them rabbits, to be honest. But, all the same, she shot him down. He took this as a personal slight against his intellect, and his ego was hurt. He believed that he was smart and she was an idiot. He complained to Starfleet about her, and in the end, he went ahead with his program anyway, for some inexplicable reason, choosing to splice their DNA with human DNA, despite the fact that one of her concerns had been that the race might be potentially intelligent. Not that she knew what a Tribble was, and he simply didn't correct her, but the point is he now spliced it with human DNA for reasons. Doing so is beyond unethical and crazy. But much to everyone's annoyance, it worked a little too well. The Tribbles were now born pregnant. They began to reproduce at an exponential rate and infest the ship. At first this was irritating, now it became dangerous. They were getting into the machinery, gumming up systems. They were also beginning to use up the ship's oxygen supply, as the ship's environmental systems couldn't handle the increased mass, heat, oxygen usage of such creatures. Their ability to reproduce at a geometric rate, pretty much, was a problem. They tried killing them, they tried venting them, they tried poisoning, nothing worked. They couldn't get rid of these damn things. In the end, as they began to overwhelm the ship, the captain was forced to order an evacuation because they were being overrun by Tribbles. All but one officer would escape the ship alive, and can you guess who that officer was? Edward Larkin. He decided that he was going to, instead of leave, as the captain was ordering him to do so, stand there and proclaim that he was not stupid, not an idiot, but in fact was a genius. And he stood there and was swarmed by fuzzy little cute Tribbles that completely swarmed him. Now they probably suffocated him. They're meant to be herbivorous, so they probably didn't eat him, but they probably ate him. So even if they didn't, the structural integrity of the ship would fail and the ship would be destroyed, but not before somehow some of the Tribbles made it to the planet's surface, causing the very ecological disaster that had been predicted. Worse than that, they made their way into the Klingon Empire. We all know what happens there. The Klingons began to hunt them down to wipe them out. This caused a diplomatic issue with the Klingon Empire, who could have considered the introduction of such an invasive species as a type of biological weapon. And basically, these things were eating all the Klingons' food. So this would leave it difficult for the Klingons to actually feed themselves, hence potentially a biological attack. Luckily, that's not what happened, but it could have done, and all because this one man's ego couldn't let it go. And the thing is, we take away from this, other than the loss of the asset, the USS Cabot, the environmental disaster, the diplomatic destruction of relations between the Federation and the Klingons even further at the time, and generally speaking, Tribbles, what we can take away from this is that no matter how far we've come, no matter how far we think we're going, there's always room for stupid. Always. The human race is as dumb in the 23rd century as it is in the 21st, and that's kind of refreshing information, I think. Maybe. Probably not. But all the same, we know that this man was a moron. He was basically blamed by the captain, who tried her best to sort of not just throw him under the proverbial space bus at warp factor 9, but in the end had to do so. Unfortunately, she'd lost her ship, one member of her crew, and her mission was basically sabotaged by this one man's pride, ego, and stupidity. Basically, he was an idiot. But for every genius, there are 100 of them, and every now and again, one of them's going to fall into Starfleet. There's no doubt that the man was intelligent, but he was an idiot. You can be smart and an idiot. And he definitely was. The USS Cabot was lost, as I said, and the mission was a failure. But all this demonstrates that one act of stupidity, one act of defiance, and not following orders led to so many cascading problems, ones that would live on for many, many years. Now, this does contradict certain information we already understood about Tribbles. Tribbles were meant to have been, on their native homeworld, basically food for everything. They reproduced at such a high rate because they had to, because they had so many predators natural to them. This now has been retconned, and now they're not like that. So this makes the Klingons destroying their homeworld a little more, why'd you do that? But all the same, it was probably just precautionary once these things were created, and they could be created again. So that is the story of the USS Cabot and its moronic science officer. What do you guys think of this? This is from one of the short treks from the Star Trek Strange New Worlds sort of adjacent, and yeah, I actually quite enjoyed it, and it was kind of nice to see that bumbling, arrogant idiots do still exist. There's hope for me yet. With that said, we're now at the end of this video, and thank you for watching. If you did enjoy it, please like, share, subscribe, and comment down below. And again, if you do feel that this video deserves it, share it around, and if you really like the channel, there are playlists linked to many other Star Trek videos, probably up here. If not, go to the channel, find the playlists, hit the bell notification icon if you really love it, because that's the real subscribe button. And with that said, bye bye. A little addendum on the end of this. This short trek, I can see why people don't like to have them as canonical. This does contravene earlier lore established in shows like Enterprise and even in DS9, and a little bit even over the original series, where Tribbles were already known, they already had this high reproduction factor, and a few other things. The idea that they were, boiled up in a lab aboard a Federation starship to have these specific advanced traits of high reproduction it's canon breaking. And I'm not too sure where to explain away the inconsistencies in the lore. Hopefully one day someone at Paramount CBS will do this for us, but I highly doubt it. I think they thought this was just a good idea for a short trek. They thought it'd be funny, and it was enjoyable, but it is somewhat contrary to earlier established canon, which is irritating. I'd just like to say a thank you to everyone for watching that video. I hope you enjoyed it. I really enjoy making these. If you did enjoy it, please consider giving a like, share, and a subscribe, and maybe checking out the other videos on the screen right now, and in the description box below there are links to my other social media accounts.